How far down there? Yeah. Is there an on-off switch?
Ready?
Good evening. I'm Chuck Rosenberg. On behalf of the Institute of Politics and the Kennedy School Student Government, I welcome you all to the forum and to a special event commemorating Veterans Day 1992. The centerpiece of this evening is a pre-broadcast showing of the PBS special In Country, Songs of the Vietnam War. And let me take time now to thank Bill Arhouse, Terry Lacona, and the production staff of Austin City Limits and KRLU Television in Austin, Texas, for authorizing our use of the videotape and therefore making this event possible. The special will be broadcast on most PBS affiliates on Wednesday night, November 11th. Locally, it will be shown on WGBH, Channel 2, at 10:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So I'd appreciate it if you'd pass along to your friends the word, especially those who have a strong connection with the Vietnam experience. With us tonight to talk about Vietnam and introduce the videotape are two Vietnam veterans, both Marines. I almost said former Marines, but I don't think there really is such a thing as a former Marine, who have distinguished themselves in public service. Tommy Lyons, currently Deputy Commissioner for Veterans Affairs for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and Jim Webb, former Secretary of the Navy, and now in our midst as an IOP Fellow. They're both well known as independent-minded fellows of great personal integrity, able to cut through to the substance and without slighting the nuance. And I'm very pleased to have them here. This week we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Vietnam Memorial with an intense schedule of events in Washington and elsewhere. And tomorrow is the birthday of the U.S. Marine Corps. So the very circumstances that make their presence here appropriate also place competitive demands on their time and energies. So thank you very much, guys. This is a tape about GI folk music. And so I thought what we'd do in an informal way is we're going to sit together, talk a little bit about Vietnam, and talk about how the culture of the military expressed itself in the setting of the Vietnam War. So I'm going to sit down, and we'll talk together. I must say that this is a reenactment of an old pattern, which is the Army Special Forces doing a reconnaissance, stirring something up, and then calling in the Marines.
You're in trouble. When Chuck first called and asked if I would be interested in being here this evening, I immediately said yes, because I've always made it an effort on my part to go out and speak on behalf of myself as a Vietnam veteran, but I think more importantly, the 87 to 90% of us that have come home and have successfully assimilated back into society, but many of you never really hear about. Thanks to Hollywood and the media, you'll hear about those who continue to have problems, and in Rambo and in all the other movies just play into that. My job on a day-to-day basis, I help those 10 to 12% who are having problems, but in my off hours like this, I try to help change the stereotype of someone who served in Vietnam. But when Chuck told me what the evening was going to be about, I was somewhat embarrassed to say that I never heard of this music. Being in Vietnam in 1968, it was interesting for me to see the Vietnamese women singing Beatles songs. So I wasn't used to the type of music I thought we're going to see here this evening.
Well, I would say that I've been involved in the the collection effort since about 1985. And then I've been recycling this material by performing it myself and participating in some various recordings and so forth. And when I perform for groups that are either veterans groups or include veterans, I get two reactions. You know, some guys will come up to me after the show and they'll say, songs? What for are you talking about songs? I was just keeping my head down. I didn't hear any kind of music, and you must be crazy. Then the next guy will come up to me and he'll say, oh yeah, there was a guy in my company, he had a harmonica, he used to make up the songs about the lifers and so forth and so on, and so forth, you know, etc. So very contrasting responses that way. And I come up with a couple hypotheses about it, looking at this stuff for a few years now. One, of course, is that generally the songs that you'll hear tonight are skewed in terms of how much free time people had. And typically the infantry had the least, and the conditions that didn't allow for it most often. And secondly, in a given group, just like any other social group, you had to have some unit cohesion, and you had to have the creative person that expressed the feelings of the group. And he had to be a social person. It couldn't be a loner. In other words, it might be a very creative person off with his journal or whatever, or even a guy playing music who was a loner. But if you had a guy who connected with the group and met the approval of the group, you had unit cohesion over some time, then you did have the conditions. And over the course of the war, we've been finding that people wrote literally hundreds of songs. We now have about 200 hours of recordings in our archive in Buffalo.
Well, you know, I'd first like just to congratulate you on doing this. And I've listened to some of them, and I've seen the titles and the words on the others, just so that people will understand the context of the American experience in Vietnam. Now, I mean, there are many different experiences, and your point about the free time that you have also plays into the tempo of the way that you operated. Typically, an aviation unit, for instance, would, unless there were specific night strikes or night close air support or night medevacs or this sort of thing, would go do their thing, and then they would come back into a secure area, relatively secure area, or a very secure area, and they would have time to get together and to do these things. Some of our reconnaissance battalion units I was talking to you about, who were in very dangerous activities for perhaps 8 days out of a month, moderately dangerous activities for about 10 days out of a month, we still would have 10 days where they would come back and they would have the type of activity that would generate music or self-written music. The infantry environment, and particularly for the Marine Corps, was constant operations. First of all, you didn't want to carry a guitar or even a harmonica. I mean, you find yourself. When I first got to Vietnam, I had this big rucksack, you know, and it was an Army pack. No offense to the Army, but you know, big pack. And one of the guys in my unit walked up and said, you know, sticks and stones will break your bones, but an Army pack will break your back. And you know, and you find yourself over the first few weeks throwing stuff out of your pack until finally you got letter writing gear, towel, poncho liner, poncho, toothbrush, and that's about it. And at night, nobody made any kind of noises. One thing that you did have, though, with no matter where you were, the umbilical cord to the United States for the people who served in Vietnam was a transistor radio, and we would take the tactical radio that we used was called a PRC-25, and it operated with big batteries that lasted for about 6 hours. And when they were done, you had to destroy the batteries, or the Viet Cong could take a small volt-and-a-half cell and make an electrically detonated booby trap out of it. But before you destroyed them, what you would do is you'd break them down into sixes, and the guys who had the transistors would take this little square of a battery and rig it to their transistor and tape it on. So you'd be carrying a transistor radio with a piece of a tactical radio's battery on it that was larger than the radio, and you held on to it for dear life. I mean, this was, you know, from dawn until quite late, except when you were tactical, you would listen to all the music that came in from the sounds, you know, constantly, and they'd have country music sounds, they'd have rock sounds, they'd have a soul hour or whatever, but that was,
No Irish songs.
yeah, no Irish. But that was your umbilical cord. That was the one, when I think of the music from Vietnam, I mean, as Tommy said, I wasn't aware of this sort of stuff with one exception, which I'll get to in a minute. But when I think of Vietnam, I think Creedence Clearwater Revival, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. To some extent, the Rolling Stones. They were quite big, 68, 69. Stand By Your Man, Tammy Wynette was one of the great songs in Vietnam. And when I can remember sitting in the middle of a place called the Arizona Valley and hearing These Eyes by the Guess Who for the first time. What a terrific song it was, you know, just picking up bits and pieces of it out of my transistor. But, and still to this day, you know, when I hear that song, I think of the Arizona Valley.
Did you pick up any of the Hanoi Hannah stuff, you and I Corps?
No, not. We had one operation where our battalion was under attack, where the North Vietnamese played loudspeakers to us, offering us R&Rs in Australia and all kind of stuff. But no, you know, we'd get the one station, you know, Armed Forces Vietnam. You know, started off just like the Adrian Cronauer movie, you know, Good Morning Vietnam, you know, at dawn, you click it on, and, you know, the grunts would all say, screw him, what does he know about Vietnam? You know? But that was really it, except for one period, and we were talking about that earlier, where, see, when I came over with a group of 67 lieutenants, 22 of whom were killed. The Marine Corps took more casualties in Vietnam than in World War II. But we went off to our different units, and we were very close. We went through the same basic school together. We were very close, and then we didn't see each other for months. You might see each other if you know, a helicopter would come down and you go up on a VR and you'd yell at each other in a helicopter for 5 or 10 minutes, and that would be it. And then when the monsoon hit where I was, it rained 68 inches in 1 week. And we were in a valley that had 2 rivers coming together like this, and the whole valley went underwater. And it was raining too hard for a helicopter even to come in. We had to high line our way out of this valley. But as a result, we were unable to operate for a period of about 5 or 6 days. And so we had all the lieutenants in our battalion got together for about 5 days for the first time in months and months. And we sat around and made up a bunch of songs. And some of these are unsingable, not because of foul language, but because they're just sort of grossly violent. But, you know, that's the kind of interaction that creates the songs like on your video.
Yeah, there's one really wonderful grunt song. It was written, it was originally a guy from the 1st of the 327th in the 101st Airborne wrote the first cut, and then there was a stand down, and he got together with some other people under similar circumstances, and they worked on the song and polished it up, you know, over a long period of time. But Tommy, how about yourself? Did you ever hear a situation in the rear where you got to a more secure fire base, or in the rear where you got guys kind of making up their own stuff, or?
Well, I thought they were making up songs till I found out they were country and western, and then I realized that I lived in Boston, and what the heck did I know, you know? But then I thought the same thing, because I would start singing Irish songs, so they would kind of give me the funny look.
Well, I told Jim the other day, you know, the entry level of songwriting is parody. So in fact, it was the definitive bio of Irving Berlin came out last year, and I was impressed to see that he actually started out as a singing waiter in some bar, you know, some restaurant or bar in the Lower East Side, making up songs about the customers.
Well, you know,
milking the
country
tips.
western is simply polished up Irish music. So.
I'm not going to get into that with you, I'll lose. But when I got back to the rear, there were a couple of units in our area where some people from supply or communications had these big tape decks, and they would have reel-to-reel. And they would write home to their local TV station, radio station, and they would send them an hour tape of the music being played. And one of the big songs when I was over there in '68 was, "We Got to Get Out of This Place."
Yeah.
And more guys sang that song more times, I think, than I care to remember.
Yeah, it's the number one hit, I think.
The Magical Mystery Tour.
Right. Yeah. But no, you know, for me and for the guys who I were with, we just kind of, you know, didn't make up songs. We sang the songs like Jim had talked about, and
Yeah.
But
Well-
I guess we weren't creative, we were enlisted, so I guess we
I think you'll see in the tape tonight, it's a fairly good mix. Maybe a little heavy into Officer Country, but it's a fairly good mix. But there's actually an outfit here in Boston called Intermedia that's done some studies of the GI use of music, the whole range from pirate radio stations to the consumer taste and so forth. But I was lost my thread here.
But as Chuck was saying, this is the 10th anniversary of the Vietnam Memorial Wall, and I was down to Washington over the weekend and with a group of guys who I went to high school with and kind of hung out with, and we went over to the wall as a group to pay tribute to the 25 men from my community who were killed in Vietnam. And although we were there in '82, still going back there 10 years later was still a moving experience, personally as well as seeing still the amount of people that take the time to walk through the memorial area. It was really something.
I'd just like to add to that the songs, for those that did experience these songs, they're a very powerful trigger of memory. I think that we remember smells, we remember sounds, and I think they can be extremely evocative. One of the recordings we made last year is being used in an in-service unit in Atlanta, VA. They use it for some of the groups that they run there and so forth. And we're getting a lot of good comments from veterans all over the world, really, even people that are still in, that are, the military attaché here or there that are Vietnam vets, and it's amazing the kind of response. The thing is that in terms of the breadth and accumulation of songs, because the war was so fragmented, with such a long war, so atomized in a way, with individual replacements, people shuttling in and out, it's for a given individual, they may have intersected with it, they may not. I've had the privilege of looking at the whole thing. And there's a saying in Asia that the lotus grows out of the mud. And I know you guys...
Says Buddha.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
You guys have seen some mud, and I don't know whether this is a lotus or not, but there's something very special about the songs that people made.
Well, I think the other part of that is it's hard for many people, I think, to fully comprehend that the Vietnam veterans have wanted something that is specifically derived from their experience. They've wanted a piece that defines their part in the cultural experience, and it's very hard to do that in the realm of music. The music can be a part of it. Only 11% of the draft-eligible males in the age group went to Vietnam. Only 1 out of 3 went into the military. So they were a minority in the age group, coming back into an environment where dramatic change was taking place, not only in the area of the war, the anti-war movement, the debate over the war, but also the civil rights movement was going on, the women's rights movement was going on. There was so much turbulence. And to be very honest, someone who's worked in government after my military service, I think that the military, and I'll say specifically the Marine Corps because I love the Marine Corps, but the Marine Corps did not do well by the people that it sent in the way that it brought them back. And I don't mean simply the fragmented tours. When you go through this experience, it was, as I said, it produced more casualties than any other war, including World War II, at a higher casualty rate. You came back from that, and in the name of basically efficiency as much as anything else, saving the last dollar, they took everything away from you. You start off in Okinawa, you go through a delousing station, you take off your combat utilities, the jungle utilities. See all these guys wearing them? They bought them out of a surplus store or something, most of them. I mean, they were gone. They take away your combat utilities, they take away your bush hat, they take away your poncho, you know, this wonderful poncho liner, which is probably the greatest blanket that I've ever had. You know, it's good for hot, it's good for cold, and it's camouflage. I mean, they take everything away. You step out of the other end, they give you your stateside utilities, they shave your head, and you go on through 2 or 3 days later, you're home, and you got, where you been? You know, how come you got that haircut? I mean, it's just gone. And if they'd been smart, if they'd been sensitive to the way these guys were being pulled out and to what they had to face, I mean, the hardest re-entry point coming back from Vietnam was not the old versus the young, as people have said. It was your own peer group, some of whom felt threatened by what you did, some of whom were turned off by what you did, some of whom were afraid of what you did. And you got nothing to show for it except some scars, maybe a tattoo. You know, I got both. But if they'd have given every guy a bush hat and a poncho liner, then he would have something tangible that he could say, yeah, this is, let me tell you a story or something. And so this is one piece of a building block in terms of, and the literature was probably the first building block, which began back in the late 70s, which helps to explain the cultural experience of this segment of the Vietnam age group.
Well, I think we ought to take a look at the tape and hear some music.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say, Tom?
No?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the 2 decades since the end of the Vietnam War, there's been a lot of debate about America's role in it. One voice that's been missing comes from the songs of the pilots and foot soldiers and sailors and civilians and average grunts who served during the war. Songs are the soul's attempt to make sense of the insanity that surrounds us. This program presents the music of the Vietnam War, performed by the men and the women who wrote these songs in the middle of that war.
An Austin City Limits special. In Country, Songs of the Vietnam War. With Chris Christopherson.
Johnson's little daughters are getting married off, getting married off, getting married off. Johnson's little daughters are getting married off, and I feel like I really want to go home.
Play around, Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone, monsoon's coming on. We'll lay around.
Presenting Vietnam-era veterans Saul Brody, Toby Hughes, Chuck Rosenberg, Chip Dockery, Bull Durham, Bill Ellis, Dick Jonas, and Red Cross worker Emily Strange. Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you. Now here's Chris Christopherson.
It's really an honor for me to work with you guys tonight because we got some things in common, because we were soldiers writing songs, trying to lift our spirits and lift other people's spirits and things that we were doing. I never served in Vietnam, but I'd have gone there, and I volunteered to go, and had another assignment as it happened. But I got out of the Army, and by the time the big buildup happened, all my friends were over there, and it was very painful for me to see the nation divided on Vietnam the way it was, and to find some of the ugly truths that came out of Vietnam. And but I thought maybe I'd do a song that I wrote, the first song that I took to Nashville and said, I want somebody to record this. Was on leave at the time, just ducking the fog, nosing around like a hungry dog in that crazy place called Washington, D.C. Saw a crowd of people on the White House lawn all carrying signs about Vietnam, so I went on over to see what I could see. They was a strange-looking bunch, but I never did understand civilians. Fella came to me with a list in his hand, said we're gathering names to send a telegram of sympathy. Then he handed me a pen. Said, I reckon this is going to the children and wives of my friends over there who've given their lives. He says, buddy, this is going to Ho Chi Minh. I said, Ho Chi who? He said, Ho Chi Minh, people's leader, North Vietnam. Well, I wasn't real sure that I was hearing him right, but I thought I'd better move before we got in a fight because my eyes were smarting and my pulse started hitting a lick. And I thought about another telegram I'd read telling my buddy's wife that her husband was dead, and it wasn't too long till I was feeling downright sick. Another held a sign that said, we won't fight, and I thought to myself, you got that right. You'd rather let a soldier die instead. I said, you ever stop to think that every man who's dying in that far-off land is dying so that you won't wake up dead? Of course, he looked at me like I was crazy. Just another warmonger. Well, I left that place and I went to town and I hit the first bar that I found to cool myself and pacify my brain. See, I was on orders back to Vietnam to a little place north of Saigon, and I had about an hour to catch my plane. All I mean to say is, I don't like dying either, but I care about the way I live. That was a lifetime ago, but... Thank you. Good on you. Hang on to your spirit there. Our first performer here served in Vietnam in a quartermaster direct support company, but he learned his songs from a bunch of chopper pilots, and Saul, as a member of the original military chopper pilot singer group, which was called the Losers, and it was me and Dick Daniels and George Day and Josh Randall.
I was in Germany.
That was in Germany. We want to give you the Keeper of the Flame Award.
Well, my goodness.
This is Saul Brody.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we had a supply depot down there in Phan Rang in 1966, and my friends all knew I played guitar and sang, and they said, you have to go down the road and check out the 48th Assault Helicopter Company. All they do in the evenings is sit around and drink beer and write songs and play the guitar. So I'd like to sing one for you now. It's sort of I guess you'd call it a traditional song because it comes from a lot of different wars, and this is the Vietnam version called the Saigon Warrior, and it's got a part for everybody here to sing. The chorus goes, dinky-dow, 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 do, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. And dinky-dow comes from the Vietnamese dien kai dao, which I understand means crazy. So want to try that chorus with me first here? Singing dinky-dow, 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 do, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Saigon, oh Saigon is a wonderful place, but the organization's a big damn disgrace. There's captains and majors and light colonels too, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Singing dinky-dow, 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 do, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Well, they sit at their desks and they scream and they shout, and they talk of a war they know nothing about. Against the VC they're not doing too well, but if paper were cordite, we'd be blown to hell. Singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Now a Saigon commando's an unusual sight. He wears his fatigues though he's not in the fight. A knife and a pistol, his daily motif. But you'll find him for lunch at the Circle Sportif, singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Well, if you go to Saigon to visit this crew, they'll be all upset 'cause your brass isn't new. If you ask for more weapons, they'll think you're in fun. They know that advisors should not need a gun. Singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Most Saigon commandos now wear a Bronze Star. They got it for writing reports on the war. They've never been shot at nor seen a VC, but they know they deserve it. They work for MacV, singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Well, when this war is over and you all go home, you'll meet Saigon warriors wherever you roam. You'll know them by sight, and they're not in your class. They don't have diarrhea, just a big chairborne, singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets. And one more time, singing dinky-dow, dinky-dow, dinky-dow-doo, with their hands in their pockets and nothing to do. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, Chuck Rosenberg was in Special Forces from, what was it, till 68?
65 to 68.
Offers a unique perspective of a good musician who got away.
What's happening this evening, I think, is what's been happening since the dam broke. And when I say the dam, I think there was a change around 84, 85 in the attitude towards the Vietnam veteran community. Some of the welcome home parades in Cleveland and in New York City and then all over the country. And there was a shift in somehow separating the warrior from the war. I went to the parade in 85 in New York, and I had the strange and kind of unpleasant experience of finding that a good friend and mentor of mine in the Special Forces community had been killed on his third tour. And it got me to thinking, what could I, as a musician, and someone who frankly got off pretty easy compared to some people, what could I do? So this is a song that I wrote. It's called Dai Huy Joe. Dai Huy is captain in Vietnamese. And it's not really just about my friend. It's a composite portrait of a young officer. Joe, we finally got our parade, and we marched on the route of Johnny Glenn. How the people cheered, how the ticker tape flew. We all played Remember When, Remember When. They lined up the boots on the LZ. The chaplain said a word from the hill, and standing in each pair was a ghost and a dream of things that might have been but never will. Of Dai Huy Joe, couldn't miss the show.
his one and only tour. Youngest captain in the airborne infantry. Well, I guess you'll always stay 23. Had a beer on the house, and then we had a night on the town. The thanks of a grateful republic was ours. Now it's back, the same old runaround. And some of us have kids now no older than we, when we swore to uphold and defend. And some of us think long, some of us forget, but for most, it will never quite end. So here's to die, wee Joe, couldn't miss the show, his one and only tour. Youngest captain in the airborne infantry. Guess you'll always stay 23.
Thank you.
Toby Hughes flew 204 missions.
One at a time.
I bet you did. I mean, this the notion of that is so awesome. I identify with Yossarian in Catch-22. I have a great respect for anybody who has done something like that. Well, sing a song, man.
Okay, I was going to start off with a song that's on our album. We have a CD and a record album put out by Flying Fish called In Country, Songs of the Vietnam War. This first one is on that album. It tells a story about a job that we were assigned to do along that interminable network of roads, that nighttime freeway called the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Even now, 25 years later, the kindest thing I can say about the Ho Chi Minh Trail is that if one wanted to undertake the task of administering to the planet Earth an enema, I can identify the point of insertion in geographical coordinates. The job was to go out, try to find and stop the trucks and supply convoys that were headed south every night with supplies that were destined to be used against some of you guys. We were never able to do that completely, but we spent a lot of black nights and a lot of good people trying. Come along, boys, I'll tell you a tale of the pilots who fly on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, of Nimrod and Covey and Blind Bat you've heard, Spad and of Nail and of Old Yellow Bird. The trucks load in Hanoi and Haiphong by day, in singles and convoys they roll on their way, south by southwest in an unending stream, reaching the border at day's fading gleam. They stop at Mugia or at Ban Karai and wait for the last of the daylight to die. Under cover of night through the pass they set sail out on the roads of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. as they roll on through darkness, not stopping to rest. Miles away are the pilots whose skills they will test, who'll soon face the darkness, the karst and the guns, in the grim cat and mouse game that no one's yet won. When you fly on the trail through the dark and the haze, it's a thing you'll remember the rest of your days. A nightmare of vertigo, mountains and flak, and the cold wind of death breathing soft at your back. But the trucks must be stopped, and it's all up to you. So you fly here each night to this grim rendezvous, where your whole world's confined to the light of the flare, and you fight for your life just to stay in the air. For there's many a man who there met his fate on the dark roads of hell, where the grim reaper waits, where a man must learn quickly the tricks of his trade, or die in the dark for mistakes that he's made. And there's many a lad in the flush of his youth who's still yet to meet with his moment of truth, with wings on his chest and the world by the tail. He'll grow up fast on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Thank you.
This next man's flown an incredible 400 combat missions. Definitely looks at the world from a different perspective than most of us. This is Chip Dockery.
This is for the families and friends of the guys that have not made it back, and we don't know why yet. As I walk down the street in Atlanta, down a shade-covered sidewalk one day, I passed by a house on the corner with a sign in the front that did say, "My daddy's been a prisoner for 2,061 days, and I haven't seen my daddy since I was 5 years of age. He never came back with the others," said a sweet little blonde-headed girl, "but we believe he's still alive, me and Mother, and we'll see him again in this world." I asked her, "Where's your daddy?" And these are the words she did say, "My daddy flies an airplane, and he's gonna come back someday." On her wrist was a small silver bracelet with a name and a date 5 years old. My eyes filled with tears as I left her. She said as I turned away to go, "My daddy's been a prisoner for 2,061 days, and I haven't seen my daddy since I was 5 years of age." Thank you.
This guy here is a real old soldier. He flew in Korea, he flew in Vietnam, and he's already assured me and convinced me that he's the star of this whole show here. I just want to know one thing, Hoss. Is your name real? His name's Bull Durham. Is there any truth to that?
No, my real name is not Bull Durham. I'll introduce myself the way I do in Tennessee.
How close?
My name is James Patterson Durham, and I was born in Mount Tabor, Kentucky. And I'm famous for a lot of things. I've picked cotton, I've plucked chickens, I've shucked corn, I play a guitar and sing. When I walk down the streets of Nashville, they say, there goes the best cotton picking, chicken plucking, corn shucking, guitar playing singer in the whole world. This first song is about the magnificent guys in a beautiful helicopter that picked us up when we were shot down, and we called it the Jolly Green Giant, so here we go. Jolly green, jolly green, it's all painted brown and green. Well, the prettiest sight that I've ever seen is jolly green, my jolly green. Got shot down late last night. Flak and the missiles were hitting just right. Well, I got on the horn with all my might, called Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. Jolly Green, Jolly Green, it's all painted brown and green. Well, the prettiest sight that I've ever seen is Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. I'd sit here alone in this tree, afraid of Charlie as I can be. I wish to the Lord that I could see that Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. Jolly Green, Jolly Green, it's all painted brown and green. Well, the prettiest sight that I've ever seen is Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. Sounds of rotors, now I've heard. Here comes that great big whirly bird. PJ's cable, now I've seen on Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. Jolly Green, Jolly Green, it's all painted brown and green. Well, the prettiest sight that I've ever seen is Jolly Green, my Jolly Green. Well, the prettiest sight that I've ever seen is Jolly Green, my Jolly Green.
Our next performer is a brave spirit who spent a lot of time under fire with the troops in Vietnam. She was a donut dolly. She wrote a song that everybody sang. Emily Strange.
I wrote this song in 1969 with a friend of mine named Barbara Hager, who was with Special Services. We were in a lovely little place called Dong Tam. And if Barbara Hager is out there, or if anyone knows where she is, would you please have her get in touch with me through Austin City Limits? My friend Lisa Harmon has agreed to substitute for her tonight. Barb and I wrote this song one afternoon. We decided if we were going to spend that much time in a bunker, we really should have a song to sing. Can't you hear that siren? Don't you see those flares? Oh, Charlie's playing games again. Incoming. Grab your poncho liner and cigarettes and bring a friend. I applied for Vietnam a weak moment, understand. Came over here to build morale in this never, never land. They briefed us on the monsoon rains and the Mekong Delta slush, but they didn't mention one damn word about the mortars fired at us. Incoming, incoming. Can't you hear the siren? Don't you see those flares? Oh, Charlie's playing games again. Incoming, incoming. Grab your poncho liner and cigarettes and bring a friend and make it for the bunker. Standing in the shower stall, the water's trickling slow. The dogs are staring at your butt and the bugs put on a show. You're all soaked up and getting clean, they're scrubbing down your back. Then the siren blasts, the MP yells, there's another damned attack. Incoming, incoming. Can't you hear the siren? Don't you see those flares? Oh, Charlie's playing games again. Incoming, incoming. Grab your poncho liner and cigarettes and bring a friend and make it for the bunker. To be awakened in the dark of night is really quite a strain. Those funny sounds like thunder from an early morning rain. The sudden realization and both feet hit the floor. I'm hitting up and I'm moving out, but I can't unlock the door. Incoming, incoming. Can't you hear the siren? Don't you see those flares? Oh, Charlie's playing games again. Incoming, incoming. Grab your poncho liner and cigarettes and bring a friend and make it for the bunker. Go, baby.
Next, we have the singing rifleman. They drafted this guy out of a San Francisco rock and roll band, didn't it?
Yeah.
In '68, if you can imagine that.
Yep.
So whatever you got to say, I'm interested.
Yeah, Chris, I was drafted out of a band in 1968, and we had just had a record released with Liberty Records, as a matter of fact. And but went to Vietnam, and while I was over there, I was a grunt out in the field for about 4 months, and then they pulled me out and gave me a guitar, and I just went around and sang on all the bunkers for about the next 10 months.
Incidentally, this is Bill Ellis. I give a great introduction there, Bill.
Well, I'll make the introduction to this song just kind of short and brief. It's just one that I wrote about one of the battles over in Vietnam, and I call it Firefight. Firefight, firefight, just had another firefight. Lead was flying, men were dying. War is hell and full of fright. Just had another firefight. You never know when it's gonna happen. You might hear an AK snapping. You hit the dirt and started praying and hope that someone hears what you're saying. Firefight, firefight, just had another firefight. Lead was flying and men were dying. War is hell and full of fright. Just had another firefight. You flip your iron to rock and roll, squeeze the trigger to let her go. She gets so hot you can't hold on. But by this time, Charlie's gone. Firefight, firefight, just had another firefight. Lead was flying and men were dying. War is hell and full of fright. Just had another firefight. War is hell and full of fright. Just had another firefight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce this next guy because I got a lot of respect for him. We have a lot in common. We were writing about the same kind of environment in the same way, and he's a hell of a musician, Dick Jonas.
Thank you very much. I get some good help to do this next one from three of the pretty ladies that are married to one or more of the in-country crew here. Kathy is my wife. Sherry, after whom Cher Babes was named, is Toby Hughes' wife. And Lisa Ellis, our token grunts bride, is going to help us on this one. The song? Hey, wait, if you think they look pretty, wait till you hear them sing. The song was written at Yuban Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand by me and a couple other guys. We had, you know, been rocking and socking North Vietnam with our Phantoms and F-105s and everything, and we got to thinking about the guys that spent their miserable days slogging through the rice paddies of South Vietnam with a cold, icy sweat of fear plowing furrows down their back. And we thought it would be a nice thing to pay a tribute to our brethren in jungle fatigues over in South Vietnam, so this song got written about them. And after it got written, like happens so often when you write songs about being in war, it fits a lot of different situations. It's called Will There Be a Tomorrow? Can you say, will the sun rise tomorrow? Will there be any time left to borrow? Will the poet make a rhyme? Will there be any time? Can you say, will there be a tomorrow? Seems to me I have been here forever. Will this war ever end? Maybe never. Will the dawn still arrive? Will I still be alive? Or will I sleep alone here forever? There's someone who I'm sure loves me only. She's the one on my mind when I'm lonely. Does she know? Can she see? Is she still true to me? the sea comes the sun, dawn is breaking. Soon the fight for my life I'll be making. If I die over here, will they know? Will they care? Will there be joy or hearts that are breaking? Can you say, will the sun rise tomorrow? Will there be any time left to borrow? Will the poet make a rhyme? Will there be any time? Can you say, will there be a tomorrow? Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. I get some good help to do this next one from three of the pretty ladies that are married to one or more of the in-country crew here. Kathy is my wife. Sherry, after whom Cher Babes was named, is Toby Hughes' wife. And Lisa Ellis, our token grunts bride, is going to help us on this one. The song? Hey, wait, if you think they look pretty, wait till you hear them sing. The song was written at Yuban Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand by me and a couple other guys. We had, you know, been rocking and socking North Vietnam with our Phantoms and F-105s and everything, and we got to thinking about the guys that spent their miserable days slogging through the rice paddies of South Vietnam with the cold, icy sweat of fear plowing furrows down their back. And we thought it would be a nice thing to pay a tribute to our brethren in jungle fatigues over in South Vietnam, so this song got written about them. And after it got written, like happens so often when you write songs about being in war, it fits a lot of different situations. It's called Will There Be a Tomorrow? Can you say, will the sun rise tomorrow? Will there be any time left to borrow? Will the poet make a rhyme? Will there be any time? Can you say, will there be a tomorrow? Seems to me I have been here forever. Will this war ever end? Maybe never. Will the dawn still arrive? Will I still be alive? Or will I sleep alone here forever? There's someone who I'm sure loves me only. She's the one on my mind when I'm lonely. Does she know? Can she see? Is she still true to me? Does she know what it's like to be lonely? From the sea comes the sun, dawn is breaking. Soon the fight for my life I'll be making. If I die over here, will they know? Will they care? Will there be joy or hearts that are breaking? Can you say, will the sun rise tomorrow? there be any time left to borrow? Will the poet make a rhyme? Will there be any time? Can you say, will there be a tomorrow?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. This is a song called Ba Mi Ba. It's about the Vietnamese beer of choice, and this is about a young Montagnard striker getting into the Ba Mi Ba and getting himself into a jam. So it's a Montagnard calypso, I guess you'd call it. It goes like this. Sergeant, please come help me, get me out of the Pleiku jail. I don't know how I got here, I was a drunk from the Ho Chi Trail. It was a bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. I didn't mean to be fighting, bringing you all of this shame. I got in a hassle with a Siklo girl down in Old Trang, and it was bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Here's where the studio orchestra comes in. Well, the Da Nang jail is cold and damp, the rats they cover the floor. Take me back to camp, Sarge, I won't get drunk no more. Sing it now. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. There's VC all around us, it's looking bad, I think. We can't do our thing, Sarge, so let's have a little drink of a bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. One more round now. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Bam mi ba, bam mi ba, bam mi ba wow. Thank you.
This song is named for an airplane. The airplane was named for a lady. The airplane's long gone. The lady's here with me tonight. And given a choice in the matter, I think that's the way I would have wanted it. Leading a flight north to Khe Sanh on the 33rd day of the fight, in a red-tailed F4 he called Share Babes. He flew through the dawn's early light. On yellow the tanker was waiting. He dropped off just north of the track, letting down, heading to 90 and trying to contact the fact. Go Share Babes, go down through the blue. Go Share Babes, go, Covey's waiting for you. Covey has spotted a truck park. There's NVA ammo and guns. Come nightfall, they'll slip through the mountains and zap the Marines at Khe Sanh. The fax mark is dead on the target, and Cher Babes is cleared for her run. Starting her long screaming dive now, out of the fast rising sun. Go Cher Babes go, down toward Route 9. Go Cher Babes go, by the gyrene sometime. Then as he pulled off the bomb run, he felt Cher Babes shudder and groan, saw lights on and gauges unwinding. The guns on the hills had struck home. He's got to get back to the water, and it's 85 miles to the beach. The left engine's gone, but she's climbing, and safety just might be in reach. Go Cher Babes goes the prayer that he sang. Go Cher Babes go, we just might make Da Nang. His wingman has joined up and checked him, and quietly gives him the call. Old Cher Babes is shot all to pieces and shouldn't be flying at all. The right engine's starting to go now. How long she'll last, he don't know. Into the clouds at 6,000, with 25 miles still to go. Go Cher Babes go, down toward the shore. Go Cher Babes go, just a little bit more. She's given him more than she's got now, with a half mile to go before she's down. One last loving surge o'er the threshold, she dies as her wheels touch the ground. The crash trucks roar out on the runway and lay down their blanket of foam. He breathes a short prayer of thanksgiving for the lady that's brought him back home. Go Cher Babes go, that was the word. Go Cher Babes go, you're one hell of a bird. Now your war's over, your battle flag furled. But oh, Cher Babes, oh, you're a beautiful girl. Thank you. Thank you.
This next song was written by a Texan by the name of Jack Selden. And Jack lived over in Palestine. Did I say it right? That's right. Anyway, Jack wrote this song. He was in Vietnam. He was flying in a TEW squad, Tactical Electronic Warfare Squadron. And we all kind of thought about why this war happened. And Jack kind of says it like it is when he talks about the guys that fought the war. This is called Crack Went the Rifle. Well, the poor boy walked the winding jungle trail, his eyes alert, his mind on the morning mail. The last sound that hit his ears, the combination of all his fears. Crack went the rifle in his hand. Mrs. Smith, your son died a hero's death, defending the way of life we all know best. I know it's hard to understand how his dying will save this land, but our statesmen say it's all worth the price. Crack went the rifle in his hand. The leaden bullets raced across the land. Johnny Smith of New Orleans, a gift from a man-made killing machine. Crack went the rifle in his hand. Now war is such a manly game to play. Makes heroes out of plain men, so they say. While cultured men in shirts of lace debate the shape of the meeting place, the common man plays hide and seek with death. So come on, boys, don't let your spirit flag. But beware the man who vows to save the flag. When this war is said and done, it's you and me that carry the gun. Walk the road to hell once again. Crack went the rifle in his hand. The leaden bullets raced across the land. Johnny Smith, New Orleans, a gift from a man-made killing machine. Crack went the rifle in his hand. Crack went the rifle in his hand.
Bulldog.
Before we wrap this up tonight, there's one more person that needs to be thanked. In what must seem like 1,000 years ago to her, Dr. Lydia Fish of Buffalo State University started collecting all the folklore of the Vietnam War. And it was through her efforts that we all got together. And without her efforts, none of us would be here tonight. Lydia Fish, it's all her fault.
She's to blame.
Stand up, Lydia.
Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone. Monsoon's coming on. Done played around and played around. Vietnam too long. And I feel like I really want to go home.
Ho Chi Minh and Johnson, they don't get along. They don't get along. They don't get along. Ho Chi Minh and Johnson, they don't get along. And I feel like I really want to go home.
Done played around and played around. Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone. Monsoon's coming on. Done played around and played around. Vietnam too long. And I feel like I really want to go home.
Johnson's little daughters are getting married off, getting married off, getting married off. Johnson's little daughters are getting married off, and I feel like I really want to go home.
I've played around and played around. Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone. Monsoon's coming on. Well, I played around and played around. Vietnam too long. And I feel like I really want to go home.
black pajamas, Viet Cong, they're coming after me. They're coming after me, Lord, they're coming after me. I got the black pajamas, Viet Cong, they're coming after me. And I feel like I really wanna go home. Done laid around and played around Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone, monsoon's coming on. Done laid around and played around Vietnam too long. And I feel like I really wanna go home. Done laid around and played around Vietnam too long. Summer's almost gone, monsoon's coming on. Done laid around and played around Vietnam too long. And I feel like I really want to go home. And
We can have some questions. I watch all that. I get kind of worn out. I know a lot of you have been through midterms and papers and everything else. If you want to ask any questions, I'm throwing the floor open for a moment. If anybody wants to comment or ask a question. Tommy and Jim had to go to another event, so it's a very busy week for the Vietnam veterans community. Anybody want to say anything or ask a question? Yeah. I would like... I would like to comment that there is something about the medium of television that tends to attenuate toward the middle. It turns into a broad brush treatment. I have a one-man show that I do where I try to incorporate some of the cross-cultural stuff. I do a Vietnamese song, I do an Australian song. There's also, I think, some songs that express some of the darker moods. And this is certainly melancholy, but there's other stuff that present a complete portrait. But I'm very proud of the show. I think it communicates a lot, and I hope you all agree. And thank you for coming. Do you have a question? There's a microphone over there if you...
Can you hear me? Well, I'm so touched with the program that you present tonight. My name is Ann Ryan. I came from Vietnam. I came to the United States 22 years ago. I'm a Harvard grad. I fought during the Vietnam War for 6 years on the American side. With the Vietnam War have been, and 17 years now. My question is this: as a soldier yourself, you have lost so many of your friends. So what do you think and how do you feel about the normalization situation between the United States and Vietnam, which is about to take place next year?
Well, I could only speak to that in a personal way. I mean, obviously, this is a commemorative event, and thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your feelings. I won't say anything geopolitical. I think it's time to put this war behind us. I think this is about healing, and I think that there are some technical questions to be resolved, but I think enough is enough. Let's move on. Anybody else? Again, thank you very much for being here.